Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. We're going to do two people tonight that present quite a contrast, and we're going to start out with Mario Cuomo, who died recently at the age of 82. Mario Cuomo was the governor of New York for 3 terms. He was a liberal avatar, one of America's best-known liberal politicians of the 80s and 90s, one of the standard bearers of the Democratic Party. He was a pretty decent high school baseball player. He actually got signed for a minor league contract by the Pirates. He got signed for $2,000. Mickey Mantle, who signed around the same time, got signed for $1,100 and said Cuomo couldn't hit a barn with a paddle. Cuomo subsequently got out of baseball for politics and law, lost a race for mayor of New York to Ed Koch, whose podcast we've done, won 3 governor terms, and was frequently mentioned as a presidential candidate. Ultimately, he never made it as a presidential candidate in the Democratic Party. He was superseded by Bill Clinton, a classic case of ambition should be made of sterner stuff. He's also the author of one of the most famous 20th century quotes on politics: "You should campaign in poetry and govern in prose." Here's the NBC Today show on Mario Cuomo.
Here at home, former New York Governor Mario Cuomo is being remembered this morning as a political giant and a dedicated public servant. He died on Thursday at the age of 82, surrounded by his family. NBC's Harry Smith is here with a look back at Governor Cuomo's life.
Mario Cuomo was a son of the American dream, born in Queens, New York, to Italian immigrant parents who came through Ellis Island with little more than the clothes on their backs. Always active in politics, Cuomo became New York's Secretary of State in 1975. 2 years later, he ran against Ed Koch and lost his bid for the Democratic nomination for mayor of New York. Cuomo was elected New York's lieutenant governor in 1978, and with the help of his son Andrew as campaign manager, became governor in 1982.
We won because people and the passion of belief are still more important than money.
Cuomo was a liberal lion who electrified the crowd when he delivered the keynote speech at the Democratic National Convention in 1984. His words aimed at President Ronald Reagan. The speech won him an instant following. Many a Democrat yearned for a Cuomo presidential run.
He's kind of the Italian stallion of Democratic Party politics at the moment.
His reluctance to run earned him an unfortunate moniker, Hamlet on the Hudson. 2 years later, seeking a 4th consecutive term as governor, Cuomo lost to George Pataki.
I've surely made mistakes as governor, but I'm as proud as I can be of what we have accomplished together.
After public office, Governor Cuomo joined a law firm and remained a visible force in New York politics, including the support for his son, Andrew, who followed in his father's footsteps to become governor as well.
We did a documentary about 15 years ago for the History Channel called So You Want to Be President. We asked Mario Cuomo, did you want to be president? It was a question he almost couldn't answer.
And he certainly flirted with it enough times, but never made the jump.
A lot of people wanted him to run.
I thought I'd play a little bit of Cuomo's 1984 speech at the Democratic National Convention in San Francisco. It's generally regarded as one of the most important political speeches of the second half of the 20th century. It's a reply to Ronald Reagan, who at the Republican convention a couple of weeks before had used a biblical allusion to call America a shining city on a hill. Cuomo's response was another allusion to Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities.
10 days ago, President Reagan admitted that although some people in this country seem to be doing well nowadays, others were unhappy, even worried about themselves, their families, and their futures. The president said that he didn't understand that fear. He said, "Why, this country is a shining city on a hill." And the president is right. In many ways, we are a shining city on a hill. But the hard truth is that not everyone is sharing in this city's splendor and glory. A shining city is perhaps all the president sees from the portico of the White House and the veranda of his ranch, where everyone seems to be doing well. But there's another city. There's another part to the shining city. The part where some people can't pay their mortgages, and most young people can't afford one. Where students can't afford the education they need, and middle-class parents watch the dreams they hold for their children evaporate. In this part of the city, there are more poor than ever, more families in trouble, more and more people who need help but can't find it. Even worse, there are elderly people who tremble in the basements of the houses there, and there are people who sleep in the city's streets, in the gutter, where the glitter doesn't show. There are ghettos where thousands of young people without a job or an education give their lives away to drug dealers every day. There is despair, Mr. President, in the faces that you don't see, in the places that you don't visit, in your shining city. In fact, Mr. President, this is a nation. Mr. President, you ought to know that this nation is more a tale of two cities than it is just a shining city on a hill.
That's Mario Cuomo. Whatever you think of his politics, he was a pretty good speaker. I'm going to move on now to our feature tonight, Donna Douglas, who died recently at the age of 81. And for those of you who don't know her, all I have to do is say 3 words and play a song. The 3 words are Elly May Clampett, and this is the song.
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed. A poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. The kinfolk said, Jed, move away from there. Said, California is the place you ought to be. So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools, movie stars. The Beverly Hillbillies.
Donna came out of Pride, Louisiana. She was a stunningly good-looking blonde. She made it to New York. She was Miss Byline on the Ed Sullivan Show. Hal Wallace saw her, put her in some bit movies, and she did some late 50s, early 60s television. She was, of course, the stunning girl in the Eye of the Beholder Twilight Zone episode. We covered that episode in depth when we did the Maxine Stewart podcast. Maxine Stewart voiced her role. Donna Douglas doesn't say anything in the role, but she's quite memorable anyway. She did a great turn with William Shatner, Boris Karloff, and Russell Johnson in an episode of Thriller, and she did 4 episodes of the TV series Checkmate. But hey, who are we kidding? Here was her big break.
Beverly Hillbillies was one of the most successful sitcoms in television history. The critics gave the Clampett clan a thumbs down, but America fell in love with them immediately. The Beverly Hillbillies ran on CBS for 9 years, ending in 1971, still a top 20 show. Buddy Ebsen played Jed Clampett, the head of the clan, the man who started it all when he found oil. And America on their television sets found gold. A middle-aged Broadway actress named Irene Ryan played the ancient moonshine-swigging granny, while Donna Douglas stole America's heart as the critter-loving Elly May. And Max Baer Jr. played the lovable lug with a 6th grade education, Jethro Bodine.
As Jerry Springer said there, the show was fantastically popular. It was #1 for several years, but there are a couple of misconceptions. The first is that it was simple cornpone humor. In reality, it was one of the great satires ever on television. All those sophisticated critics in the New York Times obit on Donna called it innocent cornpone fare, and in reality, what they were mocking was the trend of the time for people to move out to Southern California and all the trends that came with it. It was subversive, mocking the materialism and the social climbing. Sophisticates couldn't see they were making fun of the nouveau riche and all the things they loved, like James Bond and rock music. And the show had a moral all the time. The Clampetts were decent people. The second misconception is that these were not good actors. They were great actors. All 4 of them had difficult accents to do, stayed in character all the time, and were called on to do a lot of very sophisticated acting. Very few actors could have made memorable characters out of, say, Jethro or Granny. And Donna Douglas also was a wonderful television actress, and I'm going to play you one of the most touching scenes from the Beverly Hillbillies, where she and her father on the show, Jed Clampett, played by Buddy Ebsen, discuss her backstory. It's a wonderfully touching scene that starts out with your typical cornpone wrestling, but listen to how it evolves.
Paul, could I please have the axe? I gotta split some wood for Granny.
Fetch it, Jethro. Ain't this place got a wood pile?
Enough that I can find. But I found a whole row of black old dead tree trunks, pretty near as high as this height.
But you got a big for you to tackle?
Well, shucks, no, Paul. They're only this big around, and all trimmed and topped and strung together with the black rope, so no matter which one you cut, the others keep it from falling.
Somebody had a right smart idea then. Just the same, I think I'd rather have Jethro do the cutting.
Oh, Paul and me.
Cutting trees and chopping logs ain't no work for a girl.
I'm just as strong as Jethro.
You ain't neither.
I am so.
You ain't neither.
I am so, too. You want to wrestle?
Darn too. Now, here. That ain't no fair fight. Somebody's gonna get hurt. Now, yeah, you see, it's getting too rough. Jethro, person can't get crippled from a hole like that. Get up from there.
I can't, Uncle Jeff.
You turn him loose and get up from there before I take a strap to the boot. Now, here, you get out there and chop down one of them tree trunks. Saw Granny some nice logs.
Yes, Uncle Jeff. Could have whooped you if you hadn't tripped me.
Hey, come back here and sit down. I want to talk to you.
Whoop them fair and square, and I'll do it again.
You won't. That's what I want to talk to you about. Elly May, you're getting too big to wrestle with boys.
I ain't as big as Jethro.
Big that way, I mean, growed up. You're a young lady now. Just start minding your manners and fixing yourself up real nice and wearing dresses.
Paul, folks would call me a sis.
It's easy for girls to act like girls. You see, Ellie, I raised you like a boy, and I was wrong to do it. I reckon every man liked to have a son. You was my only young'un. And when your ma passed away, I just decided to turn you into a boy. By the time Granny come to help out, you was too wild to tame. By thunder, you could outrun, outclimb, outfight, and outshoot every boy in them hills.
Still can, Paul.
It ain't fitting. It ain't right for folks to go against nature. I'll look at old Duke. Reckon we could turn him into a cat?
Course not.
That's right. Because nature made him into a dog. The same way nature made you into a girl. And lately she's getting more and more positive about it.
You mean my years has grown?
No, nothing like that. You're pretty.
Oh, Paul.
I know you don't like it when I say that, but you'll like it when the young fellas around here commence saying it, and they will. Only they'll probably be using words, fancy words I won't even understand. But Elly May, ain't nobody can ever tell you how pretty you really are, except me. You're the living picture of your mom.
You don't get that quality of television much anymore. Donna's other famous role was opposite Elvis in the 1966 movie Frankie and Johnny. She supposedly dated Elvis a couple of times, and around the same time that was going on, maybe a little before that, Jethro, Max Baer, was dating Sharon Tate. Get your head around that. Anyway, here's a little bit from 1966's Frankie and Johnny with Donna Douglas and Elvis. Oh, and that other guy in there, it's another one of our most popular podcasts. It's Harry Morgan. In fact, if you go to that podcast, you'll find out what he thought of Elvis.
What is this? You wouldn't talk to me last night, you won't talk to me today. What did I do?
Who smiled at Nellie Bly last night like she was the only girl in the world? Who is she anyway?
Really want to know?
I really want to know.
Where do you think I got this?
You robbed a bank.
$700, and I owe it all to her.
You owe it all to me.
I got nothing but admiration for a man who pays his debts.
Now we're even, give or take a few dollars.
When I win, I lose.
Who hates you up there?
If you see her again, and my advice is don't, thank Nellie Bly for me.
Looks like Mitch has got her hands full.
Looks like you have. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
I hear you've written a new number I'm going to be in.
That's the one I told you about.
Frankie, it's Nellie. Nellie, Frankie. Shake hands and come out fighting.
I just might do that. Oh, your claws are showing, and they scratch. I hear you're Braden's girl, off and on. I'm nobody's girl. Let's keep it that way.
That's your typical Elvis movie dialogue. Anyway, Donna Douglas got more fan mail than anybody else on the Beverly Hillbillies, and she answered every letter. She was, by all accounts, a very, very nice person. And although to a certain extent she was stereotyped by the role and it may have limited her career, she never seemed to mind. As she said later in life,
Elly May was like a slice out of my life. I couldn't get away from it. In my case, it was a joy to do Elly.
To a certain extent, that girl from Louisiana was Elly May Clampett. And a nod, a toast, and a lift of the glasses to Max Baer Jr., the only surviving member of the Beverly Hillbillies cast. I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. And we're going to close tonight with a version of the song Frankie and Johnny. The song is over 100 years old, well over 100 years old. There are a lot of great versions of the song, and one of the greatest was one of the first recorded versions. It was done in 1929 by the legendary country music singer from Mississippi, Jimmy Rogers.
Frankie and Johnny was sweethearts. Oh, Lord, how they did love. Swore to be true to each other. True as the stars above, he was her man. He wouldn't do her wrong. Frankie went down to the corner just for a bucket of beer. She says, Mr. Bartender, has my loving Johnny been here? He's my man. he wouldn't do me wrong.